It was supposed to be a moment of joy, but it turned into a nightmare. My wife was in labor, contractions getting stronger by the minute, and we were rushing to the hospital when disaster struck. Our ambulance hit a roadblock, not from traffic or construction, but from someone who should never have been in our way, our HOA Karen. This woman, who I had dealt with over minor neighborhood complaints before, took things way too far this time. As if things weren't already stressful enough, she decided to slash the tire of our ambulance in the middle of a life-or-death situation. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife's life, and the life of our unborn child, was now at risk, all because of a petty personal vendetta. But this isn't just about a bad neighbor. It's about the lengths some people will go to make life harder for others. In today's story, I'll take you through everything that led to that horrifying moment and the shocking aftermath. What happened next? Well, turns out it's not just a matter of a crazy Karen. She's now facing criminal charges. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and I promise you won't believe how it all unfolded. To understand how things got this bad, you have to know a little bit about our neighborhood and the woman we call HOA Karen. For months, she had been a thorn in our side, complaining about the smallest things: our yard not being perfectly manicured, our car being a few inches over the line in the driveway, even our kids playing outside too late. It was always something. At first, I thought it was just a person who took the rules too seriously, but it quickly became clear she was on a power trip. Every email she sent, every complaint she filed felt more personal than professional. I tried to brush it off. After all, this was just the nature of living in an HOA, right? But this time it was different. The day my wife went into labor, I didn't expect anything to go wrong. We'd been to the hospital 100 times for checkups, and everything had been smooth sailing. But as we pulled out of our driveway, heading toward the hospital, I saw her standing by the curb, glaring at us with that smug look I had grown all too familiar with. I thought it was just coincidence, until we hit the next street and the ambulance suddenly jerked to one side. That's when I saw it. I couldn't believe my eyes. There she was, walking back toward her house, like nothing had happened. But now we were stuck, and my wife was in serious pain. The clock was ticking, and I had no idea what to do. My heart was racing as I looked at my wife, who was gripping the sides of the stretcher, her face pale with pain. I rushed to the front of the ambulance, shouting at the paramedic to check the tire. "What's going on? Why aren't we moving?" I demanded. The paramedic's face tightened, and without saying a word, he crouched down to inspect the flat tire. It didn't take long to realize what had happened. A clean slice through the sidewall of the tire. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. It was no accident. We were stranded, no spare tire, no way to continue on the road to the hospital. I couldn't believe this was happening. In that moment, I felt helpless. My wife was in the middle of a high-risk labor, and now we were stuck, all because of someone's petty anger. I had never felt more furious in my life. The woman who had tormented us for months was now jeopardizing my family's future. The paramedic was on the phone, trying to call for help, but time was ticking. I looked back at the house. HOA Karen was still there, standing on her front porch like nothing was wrong. She wasn't even looking at us. It was almost as if she had been waiting for this moment, knowing exactly how far she could push before it would break us. I couldn't just sit there. I needed to confront her, but I knew this wasn't the time. As much as I wanted to storm over there and demand an explanation, I had to keep my focus. My wife was depending on me. But what if we couldn't get help in time? What if this delay cost us everything? The sense of urgency was suffocating, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why was she so calm about all of this? Why was she acting as though nothing was out of the ordinary? I had to know. I needed answers, and fast. But as I turned to find help, I couldn't shake the fear that something much bigger was at play than just a neighbor's petty revenge. The minutes felt like hours. Each one that passed felt like it was slowly chiseling away at the precious time we had. My wife's contractions were getting stronger, and she was starting to panic. I tried to calm her down, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Every breath she took seemed harder, and I knew deep down that if we didn't get to the hospital soon, things could take a terrible turn. The paramedic was still on the phone, trying to arrange for a tow truck or any other emergency vehicle to get us out of there, but nothing was moving quickly enough. I looked at the tire again, and the reality set in. We weren't going anywhere unless someone came to fix this, and fast. Then, as if on cue, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I spun around, hoping it was help, but it was her. HOA Karen. Slowly, deliberately, she walked down the driveway, her face twisted in what looked like a mixture of curiosity and satisfaction. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "Are you kidding me?" I snapped, anger boiling over. "You slashed our tire. My wife is in labor, and you just..." She raised a hand, cutting me off. "I don't know what you're talking about. I just saw you guys stopped here, thought you might need some help." I was seething. It was so blatant, so cold, and yet she was acting like nothing was wrong. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't afford to waste more time. My wife needed us to move, and I was running out of options. A tow truck was on its way, but it was still a long way off. Every second felt like an eternity, and with each minute, my wife was getting worse. I couldn't tell if the fear in her face was from the labor or from the crushing sense of dread that we might not make it to the hospital in time. I turned to look back at Karen, who was standing there watching me, waiting for my reaction. I tried to hold it together, but the rage inside me was building, and I could feel it threatening to spill over. She had done this. She had put us in this position, and now she was just standing there, watching us suffer. I couldn't let this go. I needed to confront her, but in that moment, something deep inside told me that this wasn't just about a tire. There was something else going on here, something more calculated, more sinister than I had imagined. And the closer I got to the truth, the more I realized this wouldn't end until I uncovered everything she was hiding. Just as I was about to demand answers from HOA Karen, I heard another sound, this time from behind me, coming from the direction of the road. A car. A sleek black SUV came to a screeching halt right next to the ambulance. My eyes darted over, and to my shock, the passenger door swung open. A man stepped out, wearing a suit, but it wasn't the kind of suit you'd expect from someone just passing through. It was a sharp, tailored look, too polished for this situation. His face was unfamiliar, but there was something about his presence that immediately felt out of place. Before I could even process it, he turned to Karen. She looked at him with an almost unspoken understanding. She didn't greet him, but she didn't need to. He didn't seem like someone who needed to explain himself. He was just there. And for a split second, I saw the same smug satisfaction on Karen's face, but now there was something else in her eyes. Fear, maybe. It was hard to tell, but it made my stomach twist. "Is everything under control?" The man asked in a voice that was too calm for the situation. I didn't trust him for a second. His words were smooth, but they felt rehearsed, like he was used to handling situations just like this. "I got it handled," Karen replied, her voice betraying nothing. I took a step forward. "What the hell is going on here? Who are you?" "You know what she did, right? You." The man's gaze turned cold, and I immediately regretted speaking. "You might want to watch your tone," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Things could escalate quickly for you." The words hung in the air, and for a moment I froze. Who was this guy? Why was he here? What had Karen gotten herself involved in? But before I could say anything else, the man looked directly at me, his eyes narrowing. "You're in over your head. Trust me," he said, almost like a warning. He then turned his attention back to Karen, who stood there motionless, like she had already been given instructions. My mind raced. What kind of twisted web was Karen tangled up in? This wasn't just a neighborhood dispute anymore. This felt like something deeper, something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. And the worst part was, I had no idea how far this went or what they would do next. All I knew was that time was running out, and the threat against my family was growing by the second. The tension in the air felt suffocating, and I knew I couldn't stand there much longer. My wife was still inside the ambulance, her condition worsening by the second. I turned back to the man, whose cold gaze is now fixed on me. Every part of me screamed that this wasn't just a coincidence, that Karen wasn't acting alone in this, she had help. "What do you want from us?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. "What did we ever do to you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at Karen, who finally spoke, her voice strained but steady. "You never listened. You and your wife, always thinking you were above the rules, causing trouble. It wasn't about the tire," she said, her eyes shifting uneasily. "It was about getting your attention, about making sure you understood that there are consequences to defying me." My mind raced as the pieces started to fall into place. All the small complaints, the constant harassment. This wasn't just about a petty HOA member trying to exert control. Karen had escalated this into something darker, and now it was all unraveling in front of me. But the truth was even more shocking than I had anticipated. The man in the suit leaned closer. "We tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. Your wife's condition, it's not just the labor." He paused, letting the words sink in. "It's the result of something much more deliberate." Before I could even process what he was saying, he pulled out a small envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. Inside was a hospital bill, but it wasn't just any bill. It was a bill for a medical procedure, one that had been done before my wife even went into labor. The realization hit me like a freight train. "You drugged her," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Karen's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Not exactly," she said coldly. "But I made sure she wasn't going to give birth without complications. It's all part of the plan." I stood there in shock, my knees nearly buckling beneath me. The man and Karen hadn't just wanted to ruin our day, they had set this entire chain of events in motion long before we even realized what was happening. This wasn't just about tires or petty HOA violations. This was about controlling our lives in ways I never could have imagined. The paramedic was still on the phone with the tow truck company, oblivious to the bombshells that had just been dropped. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my fists clenched, ready to explode. Just as I was about to confront them one last time, a loud screech of tires broke through the tension. Another vehicle, a police car, slammed to a stop in front of us. The officers jumped out, their eyes scanning the scene with quick precision. "Step away from them," one of the officers barked, his hand resting on his gun. "You're under arrest." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was all happening so fast. The man in the suit didn't flinch, but Karen's expression shifted to something unexpected, genuine panic. "They're here for you," I said, my voice full of disbelief. "What's going on?" The officer nodded, pulling out a set of handcuffs. "We've been investigating your little operation for weeks, Karen. You and your accomplice here are responsible for more than just a tire. You've been orchestrating a series of attacks on families in the neighborhood, and it's finally caught up with you." The man in the suit tried to make a run for it, but he was quickly apprehended. As the officers cuffed both him and Karen, I was left standing there, stunned, trying to process everything that had just happened. My wife was still in pain, but now it seemed like the worst was over. As the ambulance was finally ready to move, I looked at Karen one last time. "You didn't just try to ruin my day. You tried to ruin my life."